Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh live inside the Beltway. What a weekend. If you are Syrian or a Syrian American, what a weekend. I always look at these convulsions two different ways. First of all, what is actually the news? Well, Assad is gone, and I am not one of those people who worry about who's going to replace him. Assad murdered 500,000 of his own people, more than 12 million Syrians displaced internally or externally, more than 2 million permanently fled the country during the civil war, which began in 2011 and is still going on, as far as I can tell. But Assad finally is gone. And it happened, it had begun to happen on Friday. We were watching the march from the Turkish border to Aleppo, to Hama, to Homs, and then it was going to end up in Damascus, and it did end up in Damascus. And so today we are treated to legacy media telling us the 11-day blitz by Syrian rebels that ended 50 years of Assad rule. That's true. That's in the Wall Street Journal. In the BBC, as Syria's notorious prisons empty, families search for the missing. That's true. Photos show people ransacking Assad's private home. That's true. That happened. How Bashar Assad's regime crumbled, that's in the Financial Times. It's another big story. Over at Fox News, or excuse me, this is from the BBC. From Syrian jihadist leader to rebel politician, how Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani reinvented himself. He's got a different name now. Reports of people trapped in underground at the notorious prison. That's all true. Every bit of it. Also, Israel's moved into a bit of the Syrian side of the Golan Heights to make sure that we don't have jihadis up in the mountains shooting down at Israel. And Hamas and Israel are exchanging names as that deal gets closer. But what don't we see? What is the dog that didn't bark in this story? And it's the same dog that didn't bark in every story forever. Nobody saw it coming. Nobody saw it coming. Team Biden, Cracker Jack, Tony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, Lloyd Austin, the vice president and the president, not one word from anyone that Netanyahu's war, Israel's war against Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran had significantly weakened the ability of Hezbollah and Iran, and at the same time Russia, to assist their longtime puppet in Syria, the butcher of Damascus, Bashar Assad. And like his father before him, he's just an evil man. He's taken refuge in Russia, and he'll never see the outside of Russia again. He'll be picked up and immediately dispatched to Syria for trial and execution like Saddam Hussein. The man has got so much blood on his hands and so much torture. And the regime, it's not going to be a violence-free handover to a new group because, A, there are 5 groups, one of which is ISIS. I'm not sure if Jawlani is an al-Qaeda affiliate anymore. He was originally an ISIS affiliate, then he became an al-Qaeda affiliate under the name of al-Nusra. Then he changed it again to HTS, and then he changed his own name. Who knows? I don't know. Syria is full of weapons and different groups. I am reminded of the life of Brian. And I don't mean to make light of the fact that a bloody dictator has fallen. That's good news. But there isn't a coherent group in charge of Syria. I do think the Islamists have controlled Damascus, Homs, Hama, Aleppo. But there's a whole bunch of that country that they don't have control of. Turkey's got its own people. The United States is backing the Kurds, as we always do. There's a small group nearer to the Israeli-Jordan border than all the other groups. And, of course, the Russians are still there in their airfield and their naval base. But they've been backing, I don't know how long they get to stay. Seriously, the Russians have been dropping barrel bombs on Syrian civilians for more than a decade. I don't think a new regime is going to simply turn around and say, good on you, why don't we work with you? Iran's out of money, out of people. Hezbollah got blown up by the pagers by 2 months of war with Israel. There's not much left of Hezbollah. They still have some weapons. They're not, I'll talk with Dr. Michael Oren later today, they're not without bite. But the key thing, Syria is for the moment free of a ghastly dictator. People are coming out of jail who you have never expected to see again. People who have been in jail for 40 years are coming out. One guy beat Bashar's brother in fencing, and he went to jail for 50 years because the old man was just as terrible a human being as the kid. There was other news over the weekend. Donald Trump sat down with Kristen Welker at NBC, and while Kristen has begun to figure out, let Donald Trump talk, don't interrupt him. That's what happens when you move from campaign mode at the networks into, oh, we better get an interview with somebody in this town for the next 4 years. They let him talk. And the first thing that Donald Trump said is the most important thing. How will you treat people who did not support you? Cut number one.
I'm going to treat you every bit as well as I have treated the greatest MAGA supporters. There's never been anything like MAGA in the history of this country. These people are so dedicated to making America great again. It's very simple. And I'm going to treat them just the same as I treat MAGA. We're going to treat everybody good. We want success for our country. We want safety for our country. You know, our country's under threat, as you know. We have a tremendous threat militarily because of the power of weapons and weaponry. It's a tremendous threat. Nobody talks about it, but it's a tremendous threat. I want to treat everybody the same. I want to treat them well. And at the end of this 4 years, and I have a big head start because I was there for 4 years fairly recently. A lot of bad things were done during the 4 years that I wasn't there, and mostly in what they've done in terms of our reputation overseas. Our reputation is so bad, so shot. I got to bring it back, and I also have to bring back civilization to our country. Our country is a crime pot, and we have to get rid of crime. We have so many things to do. We have to do the prices. We have to do all of that. But we have to get the criminals out of our country. We have to bring down crime. People have to be able to walk across the street and buy a loaf of bread without being shot, and that's going to happen. But what I say to them is, I love you, and we're going to all work together, and we're going to bring it together. And you know what's going to bring it together? Success. I saw that just prior to COVID coming in. I had polls that were the highest anyone. McLaughlin and Fabrizio said George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, if they came back from the dead and they ran as president and vice president, couldn't beat you, sir. We were doing so well. And I was getting along with the left. Let's call it the left. Would be nice. Okay, we're just going to call it. But I was getting along with people that you would consider liberal or progressive, as they like to say, at levels that I never thought was possible. And you know what it was, success? Success was bringing the country together, and that's what I want to do.
It's a wonderful statement. They didn't interrupt him for 2 minutes, and he was able to say a very upbeat, positive thing, which I believe is his intention. He's not going to get fooled again by the Comeys and the Brennans and the Clappers ambushing him, and they're keeping their distance until they're in charge, and that's good. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I hope you are having a great start to your holiday season. We went to the Scottish Walk, which is the annual parade in Northern Virginia, with a very, very frozen 2-year-old on Saturday. Great fun. 2-year-olds like parades, even if they're really dinky parades. But there's not a dinky parade. It's just rather quaint. I want to go back and finish the thought on what the dog that didn't bark with the collapse of the Assad regime. Nobody saw it coming. What do we have intelligence agencies for? What, really? Nobody, everybody thought Iraq had weapons of mass destruction in 2003, every one of the Five Eyes agencies, and 20 years later, nobody tells us that Assad is paper mache. I'm always reminded of the opening page or pages of Alexander Solzhenitsyn's memoir, The Oak and the Calf. There's one line that has always stuck with me. What if it's all paper mache? What if you could poke a stick through it? And I'm remembering that from memory, so maybe it's off a word or two. But Solzhenitsyn was saying in 1976, 13 years before the Berlin Wall fell, what if that edifice of Soviet power is just paper mache? What if you can poke a stick through it? And Assad was not paper mache. He killed 500,000 Syrians. 2 million Syrians went for Europe. 12 million Syrians had to move inside their country. He destroyed the country with the help of Iran. Hezbollah, and Russia. It's all broken. It's a terrible police state. But how is it that nobody in the United States intel community told anybody that he could be toppled in about 5 minutes? Why do we not know that? What is wrong with our AI-generated, wonderfully competent intel agencies that they didn't know that Assad would fall over after a year of Israel pummeling Hezbollah in Lebanon and in Syria? They made strike after strike after strike, and Israel was busy yesterday. They blew up the chemical weapons factories. They blew up the rocket factories. The United States made a number of strikes, I think 75 strikes, on ISIS encampments and bases to the towards Iran on the border out there in the middle of nowhere, Syria. Syria, part of it's just one vast desert. And, okay, good. We're blowing them up. That's a good thing. Keep the terrorists in line. We don't know anything about Jelani. But we didn't know anything was going to happen. And you wonder, what do these people do? Do they not, Kamala Harris didn't know anything about this. Joe Biden didn't know anything about this. Donald Trump is not in office. He wouldn't have been receiving a briefing yet. All Donald Trump did was say what needed to be said, which is, we're not getting involved here. This is not our fight. There's going to be a whole bunch of shooting going on, and it's not ours. Good for him. I want to go back, by the way, to Donald Trump on Meet the Press. Very, very quickly, he had this to say about Dreamers, which I've been saying he would say. Cut number 4.
The Dreamers are going to come later, and we have to do something about the Dreamers, because these are people that have been brought here at a very young age, and many of these are middle-aged people now. They don't even speak the language.
So glad to hear him say that. It's a move to the center. Obama won in 2008, he moved to the left. Biden won in 2020, he moved to the left. Donald Trump won in 2016. He tried to move to the right, but Comey, Brennan, and Clapper ambushed him, and the administrative state went after him. Now he's moving to the center again on Dreamers. That's very good. It's great politics. Expand the coalition.